Hi friends, and welcome back to my Signature Style Basics series. I'm Katie. In this series, we're breaking down style basics and your foundational wardrobe so that you can have a wardrobe that truly reflects who you are, your lifestyle, your values, and your evolving sense of style. So let's get into it. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite rituals, the seasonal closet review. And you may be thinking, is this just another KonMari method decluttering video? No, it's not. Although I really love Marie Kondo and I think that her Spark Joy method is a great method for decluttering your whole home, I think it's not quite specific enough when it comes to really reviewing your wardrobe. This approach is actually seasonal, and we're going to be focusing on a practical, sustainable, and more personal approach to your closet declutter and style review. It's about building your wardrobe, reflecting on who you are, and ensuring that there's an alignment between the clothing and pieces that you have in your closet and what you actually want to wear. Each season brings a natural pause and provides a great time to reflect. And the clothes that we're wearing seasonally really change. So it allows us to really review what we've been wearing and what we're gonna wear next, especially here in Toronto or any regions that have 4 seasons that are so different from each other. So we have this natural time where we can stop, assess, and reflect on what we have and what we need before we put something back into rotation for the next season or the next cycle. And here's the thing, you're not the same person as you were this time last year. You've evolved in some way. Maybe you've had a job change. Maybe you've moved in with a partner or gotten married or progressed in some other way. Maybe you're now a parent. Maybe you've gone back to school, or maybe you've changed in terms of where you're working. Maybe you're rural and you used to be in the city, or maybe you've moved from the coast to the city. Or maybe it's a little bit more spiritual or psychological or philosophical, and your aesthetic has really changed. You're leaning into something new, a new look, new colors, or you're really focusing on your words that we talked about in the last video, and you're moving in a direction that is more authentic to your core self and your essence. People's lives are often changing, and the clothes that we wear need to reflect not just the season in terms of climate, but the season of life that we're in right now. However it is that you've grown or changed, these seasonal reviews and check-ins are incredibly important to do, as well as the declutter that comes with them. And that's because without these, you may end up having a closet that is full of relics, a sort of museum of who you used to be, instead of a working wardrobe that is a reflection of who you are today and the activities that you actually engage in the here and now. Step 1 is really setting the scene. I like to make this a little ritual and set aside some dedicated time. So I would encourage you to do the same and ensure that you're away from people or pets that would really get in your way of completing your task. And certainly time block. You can do this in sections, and I'll talk about how you can do that, or you can do it over the course of a day or two. It just depends on how many pieces you have, how big your closet is, and how much time you take working through your review and your declutter. But I promise you can piece it out in a way that makes the most sense for you. And in order to really ground yourself and make this a ritual, have fun with it. Take a breath. Ground yourself with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or something fizzy that you love before you get started. It's important to hydrate and feel like you're ready to take on a task, because it is a little bit of work and it requires some reflection and thinking, as well as experiencing things in a tactile and sensory way. So put on some music you love and clear a space so that you've got the room to really lay things out and look at what you've got. This is not about ripping your closet apart in a frenzy and having an incredibly tight timeline or squeezing this in between multiple errands. It's about slowing down, it's about checking in, and it's about making intentional decisions. I find it's easier to tackle one category at a time. So I will pull out all of my pants for the next season, and then I'll go through jackets or cardigans and sweaters, and then tops, and then blouses. However you end up doing it, make sure that you're batching things out. This also helps if you really have a tighter timeline and you're not able to pull everything out at the same time. At least then you'll know what you've already done and then what you need to come back to based on the groupings that you're creating within your wardrobe. Step 2 is what I like to call the last season test. And here's where it really differs from other methods of decluttering, like the KonMari method, where you're really just pulling out things and reflecting on whether or not they spark joy. Here, I'm asking some more focused questions to determine if this piece is fulfilling both an emotional need and a physical need, so that it's fulfilling that kind of practical need that clothing inherently has. We're wearing it, it's on our bodies, it has to actually function. So here are some of the questions that I would ask myself as I'm going through my pieces. The first question is always, when was the last time I wore this item during the appropriate season for this piece? If you wore it all through the season and right to the end of the season, great. You can move on to the next question. The question would be, did I love how I felt in it? Think about if you were pulling it down or shifting it, or if it was too tight under the bust, or if it's a jacket, if you can drive in it or not, if you need to drive, which is something that I have encountered previously. Jackets where at the wheel like this instead of having the room across the upper back to actually move in it. So these are really important practical things to ask yourself. Remember how it felt to wear the garment. The next question, once you assess whether or not it's practical and fits and is functional, is, did I feel like me when I wore it last? So was it something that just felt natural to you, or did it feel like it's something that really belongs to somebody else, but it just happens to fit your body and it's in your mix for whatever reason? And most importantly, does it feel like me right now? That's another important question to ask. Additionally, you can look at the cut and color and see if it aligns with where you're going in terms of the direction of your style and designs that you're interested in and what you want to rotate in your collection. And if it's a separate, it's really important to reflect back on what you wore it with and if it was easy to mix and match with a variety of pieces. If you didn't wear it last season, it's important to ask yourself why it is that you didn't wear the piece. Was it really uncomfortable? Did the fit feel off in some way? Or was there nothing particularly wrong with the item, but you reached for something else instead, always? So there was a better option available, rendering the piece somewhat redundant in your wardrobe. Sometimes the answer is really simple, and it's just that this piece doesn't align with your current vibe, even though it technically fits. Maybe it just doesn't fit where you are with your life anymore. And that's okay, because our style is supposed to be evolving. Step 3, I call the change check. Often we're so fixated on whether or not something fits our body that we forget to check in to figure out if it still fits our life and our aesthetic. One example would be if your job has changed. Maybe you are working remotely or hybrid, whereas you were in the office previously, or vice versa. Maybe you need to dial those work clothes back a little bit and instead focus on something that is better for Zoom meetings and and that is comfortable to sit at a desk in all day when you're working from home. Or vice versa, maybe you actually need more workwear if you've been called back into the office and you now need more suits or blazers and casual pants or skirts. There we go. I just did a quick lighting change because the late afternoon sun was blasting in on me there. I had actually recorded this entire series earlier in the day, and unfortunately the sound was totally missing from my videos. So I'm re-recording it at a less advantageous time when the lighting is not great and it is sweltering hot in here. So please bear with me as I continue on with these tips. Maybe you've taken up hiking or another hobby, or you're outdoors a lot and you actually need more practical wearable clothing for the outdoors and you need to make some space. In that case, it might make sense to get rid of some of your cocktail attire so that you have the space to accommodate the clothing that helps you do the things that you love today. And now let's talk about body changes a little bit. This comes up a lot, especially when I'm talking with friends about personal style. And this, I think, is one of the pieces that really holds people back. There are a lot of folks that I talk to that share that they don't want to let go of clothing because they have either gained weight and would like to fit into the items later, or vice versa, they've lost weight and worry that if they gain weight again, that they want to ensure that they have those pieces and don't have to repurchase items. So there is a practical element to those. However, I would argue that those pieces are taking up space and you may not be the same person that you were when you wore those clothes before. Even if you get back down to that size, you will have evolved. Styles may have changed depending on how long of a time frame that is in the future. And I often find that people reflect back on these pieces that are hanging in their wardrobe and feel some sort of guilt about them. Either guilt about who they were or who they're not anymore. And I don't really think it's very healthy to have a reminder of that in your closet if it's not super positive. A friend of mine was sharing that she had gained a little bit of weight, nothing super significant, but had, maybe gone up a size. She really didn't want to move away from the pants that no longer fit her, but she was really uncomfortable when she wore them and they made her feel not great about herself. So I had said, why don't you just get rid of the pieces that don't fit and have some fun, go pick out things that make you feel really good in your proper size. It was several months and she eventually took my advice, and she had shared that she found some beautiful pairs of pants that are really comfortable. And now that those other pieces are gone, she feels really good in her body, and she's not even thinking about the fact that she is one size larger. And I think that is a really great example because she's no longer looking in her closet at those pieces hanging there that don't fit. She's not feeling guilty. And if she goes back down to that size, that's great. But that doesn't mean that she has to go back and wear those same items. She will have gone through an evolution and a lifestyle change. And I would also argue that as we go through different phases of life, our body composition changes. Where we are carrying weight and muscle changes with age, and it also changes with big life changes like pregnancy, or if we're no longer driving to work all the time and are walking or are swimming and are working out. So the composition of your body and how you wear things can really change. Just because you go up or down in weight doesn't mean that things are going to fit the same. I'm a big believer in honoring yourself where you're at. It doesn't mean that you don't have fitness or health goals or that those aren't important. It just means that what is equally important is dressing for who you are today and the body that you have today and wanting to represent that in the best light that you possibly can. We have to remember that we change and evolve quite a bit over time, emotionally, psychologically, physically, intellectually, and that we really want our pieces to reflect where we are in the moment. You might have changed so much that those pieces don't reflect your current style, energy level, or confidence. Clothing is a conversation we have with ourselves and the world. And the best pieces are the ones that speak your current language. After you've asked yourself questions about the various pieces in your wardrobe and you've gone through everything, it's time to move on to the next step. So step 4 is letting go of the pieces you no longer need gracefully. Letting go doesn't have to feel like a loss or a waste of money. Think of taking those pieces that no longer serve you, that have been collecting dust, sitting sadly, quietly in your closet, as moving on to a new home with the energy to make those pieces come back to life. And keep in mind, even if you never wore those items that you are now parting with, that is not a complete waste. I think a lot of people hold on to things because they feel a lot of guilt over the money spent and that item not worn, so there's a real loss or lack of value there. But I think of it as a hard-earned lesson. What you really paid for when you bought something and didn't wear it is learning what works for you and what doesn't, and what you will and will not wear. And if in the long run that saves you money and helps you to refine your style and really have a higher percentage of the items in your closet that you are wearing, I do not think that was a loss. I think that you're really putting that lesson to good use. Think about that blouse that you never wore moving on to a home where it becomes somebody's favorite blouse and they wear it frequently, or that pair of boots that didn't fit quite right, or maybe was a size or half a size too big or too small, moving on to somebody who wears them every day at work. There are so many ways to sustainably get rid of your clothes. One example, of course, is donating to a charity. There are so many charities that take in clothes and either resell them or give them to people in need. One charity that comes to mind is Dress for Success. They have a lot of locations across Canada and the US, and they're a fantastic organization that takes donations of gently used women's workwear, and then they give it to women who are looking for work so that they can wear those pieces to their job interviews and also wear them when they're first starting their new job. So that is an example of a fantastic organization that you can support. Of course, you can also resell your pieces, and today there's so many places that you can do that. If you want to focus on local resale, you can take them to a consignment shop if they're a slightly higher end piece. You can also take them to other resellers. You can also sell them on Craigslist or Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace locally, and that way you don't have to worry about shipping your clothing. You can arrange a meetup. But additionally, there are so many different online companies that allow you to resell contemporary clothing. So it really just depends how you would like to exit those from your closet and from your life. The most important thing here is that you don't want these pieces to sit in your closet in limbo, waiting for a day that will never come. It's better just to part with these, make the space, thank them for whatever they offered you, and then move on. When you release what no longer is serving you, you are making space for the things that will, and you're also clearing both physical space and mental space. So you no longer have to think about those things or feel guilty about what you're not wearing. So the next step, Step 5, is the seasonal preview. Once I've bagged anything up that needs to get donated or sold and I've separated it out from the rest of my closet, I will then try on the pieces that I love and decided I will be wearing for the next season. And what I like to do is mix and match items, try them on with different jackets or different cardigans, make sure that all of my separate outfits are tested in terms of what I'm going to wear with what. And by testing all of these things, undoing buttons, zipping and unzipping flies, testing with belts and checking belt loops, you can also see what is in disrepair and where a button might be about to go, or if there's a hole that's starting to appear in a pocket, so that you can make sure that you note those and set those pieces aside for small repairs or larger repairs. You might notice that a hem needs to come up, and you can take these into a tailor if you don't have the skills yourself, especially if it's a piece that you find you've been wearing a lot and that one little tweak would just make it perfect. Once you've tried on your pieces and noted what you're going to be mixing with what, and you know what's in good repair, and if there are any little tweaks that you need to make with any of your hard-wearing pieces, then it's time to note down your gaps. So after you've gotten rid of some things and you've tested some things, there will almost always be a few pieces that you need in the next season. So it's really great to note those down, and I can share some of the things that I noticed when I did this exercise. I ended up getting rid of some skirts that just didn't really fit right and weren't to my taste anymore. They were in really dark colors that I'm not wearing so much, sort of jewel tones, and I'm now focused on more muted tones that mix and match with all of my best colors. And the skirts were also extremely full and a shorter style. So the gap in my wardrobe is that I'm looking for one or two longer skirts that are not quite a full circle skirt and that are in a fall weight, so that I can have a heavier skirt or two to pair with all of my gorgeous blouses and cardigans and jackets. The other thing I noticed is I really don't like a fall coat that I purchased last year. It was really expensive. It was from Soya and Kayo. It's a brand based in Montreal, and over the years I've had one or two pieces from there, but I had purchased a puffer coat that was supposed to be great for late fall and early winter, and it has an asymmetrical neckline, and I just find because of that the cold wind blows right through my neck and down my chest, and the hood is constantly falling off, so it's not super practical for me. It's also a slim fit coat, which means I can't wear any of my heavier cardigans or sweaters underneath it, and I love a chunky sweater or a cardigan. So even though it's only a year old, I need to release it into the wild. And what I'm going to do is take it to a consignment shop and hope to get maybe 50% of what I had paid for it. Chalk that up to a lesson that I do not like an asymmetrical neckline on what is supposed to be a warm coat. I need a much higher neckline. So lesson learned, and I will be on the hunt for a new coat. I would suggest that you reflect on your gaps, and instead of immediately going out and purchasing things, really take the time to think about why things didn't work for you and what would be most practical for your life today. And also consider things like laundering, and if you have the time to take things to the dry cleaner, or if you would prefer to launder most of your items at home. I try not to purchase anything that's dry clean only, which is incredibly difficult, but that's for sustainability. There's a lot of really harsh chemicals used in dry cleaning, and also because I don't have a ton of time to be dropping things off and picking things up, I would like to avoid that and just launder my own things on my own time in as sustainable a way as I possibly can. But if you are wearing a lot of blazers and a lot of finer quality fabrics, you're going to need to do that. So that's just something to consider. Keep your focus on shopping intentionally and taking your time so that those new pieces that are entering into your wardrobe will be long-term pieces and great investments for your current and hopefully future self. Step 6 is more of a guideline, and it is the one in, one out guideline. And this is a way to prevent your wardrobe or closet from overflowing and to really help things keep feeling fresh. And this mainly applies to people who are fairly at capacity in terms of the clothing items that they do have. So if you have a lot of space and not a lot of clothing, or you are just naturally more of a minimalist and tend not to purchase a lot of items, this tip may not be for you. But for a lot of folks, I know they are at capacity or even beyond capacity in their closets and their wardrobes. And for myself personally, I have a fairly small closet and I have 2 dressers that I keep my clothing in. I do not have a lot of additional space to be bringing in new items without releasing some existing items. The other thing I want to touch on is off-season storage. And this is a bit of a contentious thing because there are some people that are diehard believers in off-season storage, and I'm in the camp of not loving the idea of storing seasonal pieces. Hear me out. I don't have a ton of space and I don't want to invest in a storage unit just to house my off-season garments. I would prefer to be able to see everything that I have on hand in a more kind of ongoing way and not have to transition things in and out of my closet. It would work for somebody that doesn't have a lot of space and really wants more units or more items in their wardrobe because they like to have a lot of variety, and that's great for you if that's the case. But I think a lot of people could learn to live with a little bit less and make use of the space that they have. I think that a lot of people don't use even what they currently own. So I do not store seasonal pieces. My coat closet, for example, has every season of coats in the closet at any given time. And what I do is I put the off-season pieces that are more precious into garment bags just so that they're a little bit more protected during the times when I'm kind of rifling through everything. But most of my pieces are out and in full view. This helps me to keep my wardrobe at a size where I can actually see everything that I own and I can remember all of the pieces that I have in my wardrobe. I don't find myself forgetting what I have, and I think that helps me to not purchase items that I really don't need. Doing a seasonal closet review isn't just about your clothing, it's about self-awareness. It's a way to honor who you are today while making space for who you're becoming tomorrow. It also gives you permission and some breathing room to evolve. I'd love to hear from you about when the last time was that you did a closet review or a closet declutter and what you found when you did that. So please share that in the comments below or share anything else that resonated with you in this video. I really love hearing from all of you. And if you found this video helpful, it would really help me out if you liked and subscribed and shared with any of your friends who are interested in fashion or personal style. And I'll be continuing on with my signature style basics series with a few more videos on personal style. We're going to be talking about color theory. We're going to be talking about silhouette and body type and line and form. So please stay tuned for that. Over the next few weeks, I'll also be talking about some great pieces that I'm looking at adding into my wardrobe. Thanks so much for spending time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.